Yes, it's another Christmas edition of the Confessions podcast. Well, it's vaguely Christmassy. I think we'll do another one next week. But an audio array of Yuletide tales on the way from the unbelievably sinful Radio 2 listener. This week's festive foul-ups include a turkey-tossing trauma, a dramatic Disney diversion, David's disco disaster, and a gratis goodbye gift. Very impressive, I think. 7 out of 10, or at least 8 in places. Who are you going to forgive? Let's see what we have. This is an intriguing tale, and it comes from... Rebecca, give us a name.
Susan.
Other sex.
Matthew.
Thank you. It comes from Matthew. Matthew says, Dear Simon and the Collective, your forgiveness, please. 5 years ago, I took my beautiful wife, Nikki, and our lovely 5-year-old son to the magical world of Disneyland Paris for a long weekend. If you disregard the pouring rain, the incessant music, and the necessity to queue for everything, everywhere, it was a truly happy and unforgettable experience. Sadly, also unforgettable for a little crass stupidity on my part. After a fabulous 2 days, you spent the last day in the park revisiting all the rides that we enjoyed the most and squeezing every last moment of fun from the trip. We packed up our things and duly left for the station to catch the Eurostar home. Having a smidgen of French, I inquired of a kindly porter as to which direction I might find the Eurostar train, only to be told, "C'est parti, monsieur," which, even with my limited grasp, translated as, "It's gone, mate." On checking my ticket, I was staggered to find that the time I had planned to check in was in fact the time the train arrived back in London. All the planning in the world undone by misreading the ticket. Worse, there were no more trains that day, marooned in Mickey Mouse Land and due back at work the following day. I have many years' experience working in the printing industry, Father Simon, so my whole working life is about meeting deadlines and making things happen on time, so you can imagine how appalled I was. We trundled back to Disneyland only to find our hotel room occupied by others, and a full hotel. We spent the next 2 hours walking in the pouring rain, pushing poor Charlie in his buggy and dragging our now soaked cases. 3 hotels later, we found one with a room. Not quite the splendour of our original hotel, more like staying in a burger bar. Not to worry, I cried in an effort to cheer everybody up. A whole extra day in Disneyland. But it was not to be. The passes had expired and we weren't allowed back in. I consoled my wife the next day by finding a designer outlet centre where we passed the time waiting for our train home. Mrs. D managed to find some stunning clothes, a deserved reward for both the inconvenience of the night before and her kindness in not making a whole meal of this particular episode. Naturally, the story comes up every now and again, usually at dinner parties, and much ribbing ensues from friends, but I have to say that otherwise Mrs. D was forgiving and has been very nice about the whole thing ever since. Now to October 2013, and we reach our 10th wedding anniversary, and having added a beautiful daughter, now 4, to our little family, the time had come to revisit that magical land that our daughter she calls Fairyland. I surprised them by booking a wonderful package for a long weekend in the most spectacular 5-star hotel, in a room with a balcony and views over the park, presented them with a handmade leaflet that I had made, incorporating the full agenda and timetable for the entire trip, from collection by taxi from home to delivery back again by the same method. I even rang All Request Friday to announce it and have a special song played on air. But you didn't do it. Maybe next time. Anyway, it was... Sorry about that, by the way, Matthew. It was a spectacular, delightful trip. It was everything you could wish for. A joyous 3 days, though, eventually came to an end, and we trundled off to get the train back. Naturally, I was this time cautious to a point of developing a compulsive disorder in making sure that we arrived for the train in good time. I had clearly marked on the printed invitation leaflet the check-in time so nothing could go wrong. Reaching the first floor of the station, I inquired of a friendly-looking porter, déjà vu to use the vernacular, as to where we might get the particular train home. C'est parti, monsieur.
What?
Well, you could have knocked me down with a baguette. Feeling the staring eyes of my wife and 2 children behind me, I slowly turned and revealed that the train had indeed left. We had missed it again. In a daze, I headed for the ticket office to inquire as to what might be done. Having been told the inevitable, no more trains today, I brightened when told that trains back to Angleterre were still running from Paris. It's okay, we're going to jump in a cab. We'll catch it at the Gare du Nord. Thank goodness the tickets were transferable, said Mrs. D. Indeed, I replied, and we rushed off to find the cab. The taxi through the busy streets of Paris was like another scary ride, and the €100 fare enough to scare anyone, but we made it on time just, and at last Although mentally and physically exhausted by the experience, we were en route. Well, forgiveness I need, not, as you might think, for the stupidity of not being able to catch a train on time, not once but twice, but for the fact that within the story there was one quite dreadful lie. Did you spot it? Where was the lie in that story?
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
I'll tell you.
intrigued. Go on.
You've just heard it. The lie was when I said the word indeed. Thank goodness the tickets were transferable, she said. Indeed, I replied. I was not able to bring myself to tell my wife and to be truthful, as I should have been, about swapping the trains. The tickets were, in fact, not transferable, and I had to pay €900 for the new ones. So Mrs. D lost out on what we might have been able to have a potential weekend somewhere or a garment of clothing. Anyway, it's the lie for which forgiveness is needed. She doesn't know until this moment that the tickets were not transferable. Having drummed into my children that telling the truth is essential in life, I find myself having broken the golden rule. And while the confession will make me feel better, there is no going back. So that's the thing. It's not missing the train. It's, yes, of course they're transferable, dear. Sign a cheque. Sister Rebecca.
That is hilarious. That's a great confession. That must have been the most expensive holiday ever. I mean, I know how much those 5-star hotels cost.
Plus €100 for the cab.
I mean, completely out of this world expensive. My goodness. Plus €1,000 you didn't need to spend.
Yep.
Well, I think, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because his wife, if she hears this confession, she's going to be furious about that. But he's already suffered because he had to pay all that extra money.
You would do the same. The thing is, you would do the same, wouldn't you?
Well, I suppose, yeah. If you
they're
had the money,
transferable,
you'd do it. I guess, given that he was just trying to protect himself and her from more anger, I think I'm going to forgive.
Brother Matthew goes,
Well, obviously the first time is an honest mistake, and we've all made mistakes. However, you put yourself in the shoes of the wife at this point when it happens for a second time. She's, what on earth are you doing? How can you've got this wrong again? And frankly, I'd be fearing for his safety if he then said, oh, and no, the tickets aren't transferable. This is going to cost €900. So obviously he's got to lie at that point and say, yeah, no, she should be fine. I won't have to shell out €900 for this at all. But it sounds to me like he can probably afford it. So I am going to say not forgiven because I've taken against you personally.
Also, how did he fail twice? I don't understand.
Because he's thick. That's why. How is he coming across €900 and he can't get that right?
we have a Christmas confession, and it's ended from Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, very much indeed for tonight's tale. Dear Simon and the Collective, I am drawn to put pen to paper because of the statute of limitations, which may all be over on a festive incident from my past.
Right.
In 1978, after completing my apprenticeship with the then nationalised power company, I was drawn to an advert in the local press for a global Anglo-Dutch operator looking for technicians in the then emerging UK offshore industry. My application and subsequent interviews were successful, and I became an offshore production technician. My introduction to the new world of working as a North Sea tiger found me hundreds of miles off the coast of East Anglia on the Lima production platform. Unlike the popular view on the new rigs with huge drilling derricks and crewed by mud-caked Americans called Chuck, a production platform is actually a much quieter affair with no such facilities. They were, in fact, steel structures with processing facilities and a crew to operate and maintain them on a week-on, week-off rota as modern-day lighthouse keepers, effectively. The normal complement of between 12 and 30 men was reduced to a skeleton crew over the Christmas period to a base crew of 8. Being offshore over Christmas was a quiet time, and the usual rigour and routine was slackened, with special effort being put into the catering, with unbelievable spreads put together by the catering crew, who, in this case, numbered 2 people. That being Tony the chef and Barry the steward, a.k.a. Scouser, because of his Liverpudlian ancestry. That wasn't the most imaginative nickname give someone.
Yeah.
Scouser?
Yes.
Anyway, imagine that. Both were unbelievable.
I live with it.
Both were unbelievable grafters, more so at this time of year. Over this Christmas period, a call came in from our standby vessel. These were retired ex-Lowestoft deep-sea trawlers that were more suited to dragging fishing nets rather than sitting on close by, as our emergency vessel should be should we need to evacuate the platform. Anyway, they were good guys. These boat crews all seemed to come from Hull or Grimsby and worked a much longer rotation at sea than us. So on this particular day, when our platform manager inquired how they were, a long tale of woe followed. They were due to be at sea for the next 3 weeks, and their freezer had failed, so would be restricted in their festive fare and cheer. So the manager was offering some of our food stores so that they could at least enjoy the festive period. So this is a nice, generous gesture.
Scousers.
The call came to me. I've had a word with the boat, and because they have no freezer, we're going to give them one of our turkeys. They're going to be coming in close, so let's put one on the crane.
A crane?
Yeah, they're using the crane to transmit the turkey onto this boat.
Trying to just throw it.
Yeah. We might fall in the water or something.
Standing with the crane driver on the top deck, 100 feet above the sea, with radio in hand, we watched the boat make its slow approach, because it was not as manoeuvrable as the multi-thruster vessels of today. Just then, Barry appeared from below with a frozen turkey. It was then that I made the mistake of using slang rather than being accurate as to how we would put this festive cheer down onto the boat. OK. Hi, she's just coming into position, and then we'll throw the turkey down to them, is what I said. The three of us leant on the handrail, watching the seamanship of the skipper, bringing the vessel in against the tide. As it chugged closer, Gary went off to start and prepare the crane. Barry held the turkey. Barry weighed the turkey in both his hands. Then, with a pass worthy of Johnny Wilkinson, Barry threw the frozen turkey down onto the boat. So you see, yours was a word of prophecy there. / spoiling it. With a scene reminiscent of the Dam Busters, the turkey hit the deck of the boat below, bounced and smashed through the wheelhouse window.
No.
At that point, the boat started to reverse off the platform, for understandable reasons. My stunned and naive questioning of, why not wait for the crane, was met by Barry saying, you told me to throw it down.
Yeah, he did say that.
We scuttled down below to the radio room, where the manager was now on the radio to a rather laconic boat skipper. Insert Hull accent here, Simon.
Yes, here we go.
No, I'm not going to.
Go on.
Really?
Go on.
No.
Come on.
Oh, come on.
No.
It's Christmas almost.
No, it would be insulting.
To whom?
So I'm just going to do an ordinary voice. I'm not going to do an ordinary skipper voice, okay?
All right, here we go.
Yeah,
Spoken like a
This is-
natural. Yeah.
Standard voice for somebody who works in the service industry. Here
a
it comes.
rather laconic
Here we
boat
go.
skipper came on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the Christmas dinner, Lima platform. We're all okay down here. We'll find some hardball for the window. Don't you worry.
Chimney.
Well, there's gratitude for you, said Andrew. Anyway, I learnt a lesson that day not to use slang when exact instructions were needed. This advice I've now taken throughout my career as a health and safety manager working across the globe, always being specific when it came to work instructions. I need forgiveness from the skipper and the crew of the standby vessel for the now drafty wheelhouse and the manna from heaven, which was served with a spattering of glass shards. Well, it was just a slight confusion, but you would think if you've got a huge frozen turkey, whatever Rebecca says, you're not going to throw it down 100 foot onto a boat that's just turned up. Anyway,
We did get there, though, didn't it? The
well,
turkey
it got there, yeah, via the window of the hull trawler.
At least it didn't sink the boat. I thought the frozen turkey was going to go right through,
right,
you know.
Yeah,
the,
well, actually, I've just deleted that bit. I thought it would be inappropriate at this time of year.
Oh.
Okay, I think it's perfectly fair enough that he used slang because he, after all, they were lifting a turkey rather than, you know, something for the oil platform. So he was being a little bit, you know, less formal. So completely understandable. I think the chef should have understood him.
Yes.
Understood that he was using slang. They only got a broken window. They got their turkey. So I think not much harm done. So you're forgiven.
Andrew's going to be forgiven.
Yeah, I'll
Dean
be forgiving
Denman
as well,
was.
because it was almost Christmas and they got their turkey in. They were going to pluck a few shards of glass out of the turkey.
You don't expect the turkey to come through the window, though, do you?
No,
Frozen
but-
and drop from 100 feet.
Manna from heaven. Manna from heaven.
Let's see
Yes.
what Brother Matthew makes of this.
Well, am I alone in thinking that if you're on that boat then you're going to have this massive hole in your window, and it's the middle of December, and you're out at sea, and it's freezing.
Just tape a plastic bag over it.
What?
window.
No.
Says the experienced fisherwoman.
Well,
You're not going to eat on the bridge, are you? Eat on the
However, Barry's his own man, isn't he? Barry's decided I'm gonna throw this turkey 100 feet down onto a boat, and it's up to him, his decisions he makes. It's not down to Andrew to have jumped in and said, "What on earth do you think you're doing, throwing a frozen turkey at a boat that's only going to break the window?"
said throw.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to forgive.
Who are you blaming?
I'm blaming Barry.
Barry's the Scouser.
Yes, well, I'm not just going to forgive him because he's from Liverpool.
Oh, okay.
Although
it always helps,
no.
doesn't it? Always helps.
Not forgiven? Yes. I don't know. I've forgotten what I've said.
Okay, Andrew's forgiven, I think.
Whatever.
Another Christmas confession here. This is from David. David, thank you very much indeed. What do we have here? Dear Father Mayo and the Seasonal Collective, as Christmas approaches, I especially need your forgiveness, as I have long been burdened by this. We're going back to the 1970s. My mates, who were all in their late teens, had cobbled together a disco. Called ourselves the Delta Dawn Roadshow. Travelled around the Newbury area, providing music for parties and functions. I often helped out lugging all this heavy equipment, you know the kind of stuff. Twin decks to play the records on, sound to light boxes, very large speakers which needed unloading from vans and trailers, that kind of thing.
Those were the days.
Summer parties, winter parties, birthday parties, and most of all, parties for no party's sake at all, we did them. Invites would read, Sue and Lou invite you to their "What would you wear if you weren't so square" party. Blimey. Anna and Di invite you to their "At Home at the Grange" party. You know, the kind of thing. Well, I don't actually, but we'll carry on. On this occasion of a house party, the good old Delta Dawn Roadshow had the party gig with a lovely girl we shall call Tamsin. She was a very well-bred girl, and Mummy and Daddy, they were the hosts, but they were away, which was very handy. We didn't actually know Tamsin. She was a friend of a friend and lived in a very large country house in the middle of nowhere. Ideal, very suitable. Disco and lighting equipment, largely made by an electronic boffin called Gary, was brought in by the trailer load, and these huge and heavy light boxes were hauled in together with huge carpentry-made wooden box full of vinyl 45s. The whole lot weighed a ton. The box of records alone required 2 strong roadies to carry in, me being one of them. The whole team were well versed in completing this regular setup, and on this occasion at Tamsin's house, the format was pretty much to run as we were expecting. My job, carry in all the kit, including the massive over-engineered timber box of 45s, which was a struggle to lift. The box was placed on a polished antique dining table, which had been carefully covered in advance by a piece of carpet, specially carried in by the disco for such events. The heavy box sat there while Tamsin decided in which room we should have the party.
Yes.
All the rooms in large houses have names, and she was busy running around, a little disorganised, still deciding at this late stage where we were going to have to set the music up. "Shall we have it in the green room or the panel room or maybe in the hall?" said Tamsin as she flitted from one room to the next. At that point, the heavy box of records was still happily sitting on the antique dining table.
No.
Now, unknown to us, this dining table was one of those that can be extended out by inserting sections in the middle, making the legs further apart. It had just recently been extended, and these extra sections laid in preparation to host the 12 people that were planned for their forthcoming grand family Christmas dinner. While Tamsin was still running around trying to decide where we should set up the disco, we heard a small creak. And then we heard a much larger creak. And we stopped, and we stared at the table. Then, like a rifle shot, a large cracking sound was followed by the complete collapse of the entire dining table, which dropped the box of records to the ground in seconds. Vinyl treasures spilt everywhere. A copy of Ballroom Blitz was badly scratched. Devilgate Drive would never make it onto a turntable again. However, more importantly, the antique table had snapped in half and sitting there in a cloud of woodworm dust. It was a forlorn sight, like the Titanic.
What? Just because the table's broken doesn't mean just like the Titanic.
I don't think it was.
Stretching it a bit.
The silence was short-lived as both my mate and I... Oh, look, we looked on in silence.
Yeah.
The silence was short-lived as both my mate and I simultaneously broke out into a complete fit of the giggles, which turned into uncontrollable laughter. Due to the noise of our braying, we were soon joined by a few mates who ran in to see what the commotion was. Although we couldn't speak or even see through tears of laughter, we were pointing to the obvious that the table had broken its 2 lower support rails. They had just snapped, just like the Titanic. Posting guards on the door, still laughing, we carefully lifted the record box off the remains of the table, and with one person underneath, pushed up Pushing up, we located the jagged, splintery rail sections and with some effort managed to push each end of the table back to meet the centre.
Clever.
There you are.
Clever.
Yes, I know you know what's going to happen. But here's the thing.
Not
You
again.
don't tell us. Voila, a table again, and covered with a hastily discovered cloth. It looked fine.
Brilliant.
Tamsin didn't have a clue. She breezed in at the last moment and said, "Right, boys, bring the music in here." Well, we couldn't move for laughing. Tamsin just stood there, hands on hips, saying, "What's so funny?" Well, we were relieved that she hadn't spotted the problem and we didn't want to spoil the evening. We immediately moved the records, whispered a covert warning, "Keep away from the table." We cleared away the equipment after the gig, left after the party, completely forgot about it. Apparently, Christmas dinner was a big affair in Tamsin's house. Full setting of cutlery for all the people, 8 courses, wine, candelabra, everything laid out that year. Their friends and guests sat round until the turkey arrived, ceremoniously placed in the centre of the table, you're ahead of me now, immediately, and with a fantastic Christmas wrecking crash for the second time in its life, the vintage table collapsed. This time even more dramatic than the first, coupled with a larger audience sitting round it. Everything went down. Turkey, cutlery, napkins, candelabras, all unceremoniously joining the woodworm dust and the finest Chablis and Shiraz now on the laps of the guests. Tamsin and her parents had to rescue them from the wreckage and salvage their dinner from the floor. Soon after that, Christmas news filtered through as Tamsin relayed the story to one of our friends of how it had all collapsed and what a disaster it had been. And I, says David, have carried this burden for 30 years because no one knows it was the disco's fault. I now seek forgiveness, as I'm sure the family of Tamsin were not amused at the time. However, I do somewhat blame the woodworm, which I believe should carry some of the guilt, as it was their fault that the table collapsed. Another disastrous disco story from David. What do you say, Sister Bex?
I agree that it did sound like the woodworm was partly to blame because it was full of woodworm dust and everything. But I think, so the table was weak, that's fine, but he should have said something. Why didn't he just tell her so that they didn't make the mistake of loading the table up with the turkey on Christmas Day?
Because they might have got a bill for an antique table.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't his fault because it was full of woodworm. He could have argued that. Yeah, so I think he just made the whole situation worse and ruined Christmas for the entire Tamsin family. So now I'm not forgiving you, David.
Dean.
I can't forgive him either, I'm afraid. Sorry, David. David, what are you doing? I mean, you should have fessed up. It was there waiting, an accident waiting to happen, and he should have confessed, really. He almost ruined their Christmas, didn't he? Almost ruined their Christmas.
Well, it could well have ruined their Christmas in as much as their entire meal
was on the floor.
And the vintage Chablis and Shiraz ended up there.
Is that what you're having? Are we all coming round?
Oh,
right, sorry. I was
just in the...
I thought you were creating an image there. I thought we might come round.
Matthew, what are you saying?
I'm going to put us in the minds of the guests at this Christmas meal because, frankly, if I were one of them, I'd be finding it insufferable going round to Tamsin House. Well, where are we going to have Christmas dinner? Should we have it in the green room or the panel room? Where are we going to pull the crackers in one of our other 35 rooms? No. And let me put the big turkey down. There goes your table. All over the floor. Yes, serves you right for having a big table. So I am definitely going to forgive. Fight the power. Well done, everyone.
Serves you right for having a big table.
Yes,
is that what you
serves
said?
you right for throwing your big table around with your different rooms
and your antiques
and your odd names.
The man who's only just had his own roof put back on.
Yes, there you go.
Yes. Tonight's tale from Candice. Thank you, dear Father Simon, and the forgiving threesome, a.k.a. pushover posse. That.
Right.
I don't think they're a Passover, or even a Passover. I think Rebecca is quite easy.
Really?
In the pushover stakes, yeah. Matt is impossible, and Nigel is easy as well.
Oh.
I think you're a pushover, Nigel.
I thought you said somewhere between the two.
No,
okay.
You're a pushover.
Right,
Matt's the hard one.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
He's just...
deranged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Candice says, this confession is truly heartfelt and genuine, as I'm sure you'll agree. Let's go back to December 2011. We were experiencing a particularly cold snap pre-Christmas. My job at the time was as business development manager for a national company. My boss was a very ambitious woman, single. She probably scared off any man who approached her, made Cruella de Vil look like Snow White. Anyway, on this particular cold December day, we were holding our annual management Christmas dinner at a nearby top hotel. It was my job to check that all the arrangements were perfect. I arrived for my pre-dinner check and pulled up in the car park and noted the fine selection of cars all around me. As I alighted from my ordinary family saloon, I noticed a yellow Rupert Bear-type scarf on the ground. Looking around for a possible owner of this garment, there was no one to hail, "I say, is this yours?" So I hung it over my wing mirror, thinking that the owner would spot it and claim it on the way out. As I did so, I noticed how soft it was, and that the label said, "Pure cashmere." I thought, expensive. On I went into the hotel, and many hours later, post-dinner, we emerged into a dark and dimly lit car park. After seeing the now well-inebriated management team off in their pre-booked taxis, I wearily climbed into my ordinary family saloon, sober, with no thoughts of the scarf, until my reverse lights came on, and it shone over a rather sad, well-trodden, yellowish thing lying on the ground. The Rupert Bear scarf was back. I climbed out of my ordinary family saloon. You've got to think about this. Ordinary family saloon. And I examined said scarf in the headlights and noted that it was now sadly filthy, slightly torn, and had been visited by a dog or two. So I hatched my plan. My partner at the time, we'll call him Dick, had recently returned from working overseas, and for many reasons things weren't that great between us. He's a very sociable chap with a rather full diary, aka a little black book, and I had decided that my New Year resolution was to set him free, to live the life that he was clearly enjoying so much anyway, and then I would be free from being his housekeeper and doormat to live a life that I enjoyed without him. He was also rubbish at buying presents. So, I took the Rupert Bear scarf home with me, and I googled the name on the label, which confirmed my earlier thoughts. This was one of the most expensive scarves it's possible to buy. Slightly tire-worn now and visited by a dog, but, in origin, a beauty. I carefully washed it, stitched it, dried it flat as per instructions on the label. On examination several hours later, Father Simon, I have to tell you, it was a triumph. The scarf looked just like new. It was now the 23rd of December, and with conviction that I was doing the right thing, I carefully ironed the scarf and went out to buy one of those expensive present boxes and some tissue paper. Christmas Day arrived, and under the tree were several presents in their colourful wrapping, and one rather smart white box with a red ribbon. I handed the box to Dick, who seemed rather impressed, and upon opening it, exclaimed in delight at the sight of a Rupert Bear scarf. He was thrilled, and said he'd always hankered one after seeing my boss's partner sporting one down at the yacht club. The scarf was a triumph, but he frankly didn't deserve it. He gave me a shoe cleaning kit.
What?
And, get this, and a voucher for a facial because apparently I was looking a bit past it.
Oh, right. Okay.
End of quote. So I beg forgiveness not from Dick, who didn't really deserve such a splendid gift, even though it had history, but from my boss's chap, the original owner who dropped the scarf in the first place. I also beg forgiveness from the hotel staff, who were probably contacted many times about his longed-for scarf. Needless to say, Dick and I are no longer an item. But our paths do cross. He still has the scarf, and in fact I saw him wearing it at the weekend, and I still feel rather guilty. He still doesn't know its origin. I am at the mercy of you, O faultless ones, and hope you'll find it in your hearts to forgive me at this Christmas season. Yours, Candice. I like the fact that she saw her ex wearing this scarf. He still loves it, and he doesn't know how she came by it, but thinks presumably she spent hundreds of quid on a nice bit of cashmere. Here's Sister Rebecca speaking.
I don't blame her for giving the scarf to her other half, even though she knew that it wasn't something she'd bought, because nobody claimed it after all. It was just going to stay in the mud. But I think that when she found out that it was her boss's partner's scarf, and once he gave her the face,
but that was
thing,
on Christmas Day.
I know, but I would have taken the scarf back and given it to the boss's partner.
No, you wouldn't.
I would have been really annoyed about that thing about being past it and the facial thing.
Yeah, the facial is inexcusable.
I mean, that is outrageous.
Have
and
a
she was
facial.
going to get rid of Dick anyway, wasn't she? So I would have taken the scarf back, given it back to the boss's partner, and everyone would be happy. But as far as, the fact that she claimed that she'd bought it, you're forgiven for that.
Yeah, I think Dick was history after this. So what do you think? Here, Nigel, Novice Nige.
Dick's gone. Bye-bye, Dick. Over the hill, finished.
Yes, he's
horrible
gone.
man. But she knew someone had dropped it. She should have taken it back. Not forgiven. Hang a heinous crime. Absolutely.
Taking it back where?
Taking it to the reception. taken it back to the event and said, look, someone's dropped this outside, we'll come and pick it up. She didn't.
No.
She left it. Even when she came back later on, I know, but she didn't realise the dog chewing it. Yeah, right. But she ran over it, possibly. But then she could still have taken it back to reception. Sober that she was, she should have been rational.
Just because I said you're a pushover, you're being all hard and stern now.
She should be in the colonies by now for that. Thank you.
Okay, let's...
Undrawn, what the rest of it.
Yeah, and the rest.
I think most right-thinking individuals are in Candice's corner here. However, I am going to... Number one, if it had been me, I wouldn't have washed it. I would have left it as it was and insisted that Dick put it on in front of everyone and wrap up warm. In fact, actually, no, what I would have done was this. I'd have said, oh, can't find your Christmas present, Dick. That's because you're out. Take your little black book with you on the way out. So for that, I am going to forgive, because frankly, had it coming. We all know that. No right-thinking individual is not on Candice's side.
Well, shall we find out?
Oh, it's me then.
Yeah.
Well, you're a little bit extreme there, Nige, there, I think. They were this week's confessions. Let us know yours, please. Particularly if it's a festive one. A Christmas confession, send it in very fast. confessions@bbc.co.uk. More festive foul-ups next week. The Weekly Mayo is available now and every Thursday. Thanks.